of the island as well. However, the ones that are on the east side of the island, they are not visited because that's where the main wind comes from. The southeast wind goes into that side, so there is no diving there. Now, here, what we're gonna talk a little bit is gonna be about what the corals are, why they are so important for us, why is that now they are imperiled, and what it is, what we are doing, the job of education, mostly with the people that visit us, and what we're talking is, in the diving industry, we don't talk very much about the corals per se. When we teach the people how to scuba dive, we teach them how to dive, but we don't really tell them what is a coral. However, 95% of the people that they dive where the coral reefs are. So we have become part of the problem and not part of the solution. And what we're trying to do through Cozumel Coral Reef Restoration is that we are in front of a reef that has been in a lot of challenges, mostly human challenges from being putting water, like sewage water there, where there has been now the development of they want to put a pier there. So it has been under a lot of pressure. However, that reef has been there long before we were there. And that's the only reef that is still outside of the marine park and that it has been an area where we want to preserve. So that's where we start all this program. And here we can go to the next one, please, so that we can start with the presentation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, basically here, guys, this that you can see here, this picture is taken in Cozumel, the one on the right side. The one on the left is so that I can show you what is how it looks, a coral. These corals that you see on the right, that it looks like a rock on the top with little round holes there. Well, that's how you see them during the day. But during the night, the animal comes out, as you can see here on the left side, where you have the polyps. The polyp is the animal that forms the coral. And as it says there, it is part of the jellyfish and the anemone family. However, they cannot move. Wherever they are going to station, they stay there. And if you notice in the rock on the right side, you have there two species of corals that they are different. The one on the top is called cavern coral, and the one on the bottom right, it is called the mustard coral. Now, you see the orange part, and the orange part, although that is part of the reef, is not the reef. You see, that's a sponge. And sponges, although that there are animals that they live in the reef, they are not the ones that they form a coral formation. They live in the coral formation, but nothing can grow on top of a sponge. However, when a coral dies, that skeleton becomes the part where other corals will grow. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, so basically coming back into like the detail of the matter, the animal that forms the coral is called a polyp. And the polyp, as you can see on the left top, it is that's like a little anatomy of the coral, but you can see that it's an animal that it attaches to the bottom, and from the moment that it attaches to the moment that he dies, he can never go anywhere else. He has to stay there. And that's the biggest problem for the animal because if in a moment somebody decides to put a beach club in front of the place where they live, they have to handle it. They cannot go somewhere else and say, oh, well, now it's your turn and I'm going to go to another beach. They can't move. And that's the problem. And the problem has been that basically corals are animals that, as you can see on the bottom right, there is a rock that you can see that's the skeleton of the animal. And if you see how they are like lines going up, each one of them has been corals that they have grown for hundreds of years. Corals, they grow 1 centimeter a year. So it's very little what they grow. And the layer where the animals live is is not thicker than a millimeter, 2 millimeters maximum. So there are animals that, although that they are so strong that they can make a coral reef or they can make a battery reef, or in our case, an island, they're still very vulnerable to all these factors. And the thing is that the coral not only is the animal itself, but one of the things that happens is that when you see the corals, they grow in places where the water is very clear. What the water clear means is that the water is an atrophic ocean. There is no food. There is no plankton, like if you go to the Pacific Northwest, where you have whales and seals and bigger animals. Here in these parts of the world where we have the corals, they have no nutrients. So how can the corals survive? Is that they have this relationship with an algae. Coral, the plankton is divided in two. Is divided in phytoplankton, that they are all the macroscopic algae that they live in the ocean, and the zooplankton, that they are all the larvae of crustaceans, fish, even of other corals, that they are swimming in the water and that they eat those plants. But some of those plants, to avoid predation, they make what we call a symbiosis, an alliance in between the polyp and the plant. So the plant gets a place where it's not going to get eaten, and the coral in return gets the light of the sun that is providing them through the photosynthesis with the carbohydrates that they need to survive. Because the water has no food, even if they would be animals 24 hours a day, there is not enough amount of food to maintain them. And that's what happens when the bleaching events comes. That in that moment they lose that algae, so Santella it's called, that in a moment can be the demise of the coral, because the corals, if they don't have the algae, they become white. But that means that the coral is still alive, but now the color is given to them because of the algae. Once the algae is outside of their body, they become like ghosts, white. And the thing is that now they have to be animals 24 hours a day, and they cannot survive because there is not enough amount of food. So at the end, in a bleaching event like what happened in Florida in 2023, in that moment, all those corals died of starvation. And it's sad because coral grows 1 centimeter a year. So when you lose a coral that it is 1 meter in diameter, you're losing like 1,000 years of history. Just 1 meter in diameter. So that's the thing, corals grow very slow. There are animals that, although they are so strong that they can make an island, they can also die because you change the conditions of the water, because there is a lot of contamination from the same sewages that they come in. When I came to Cozumel, when it was 40 years ago, there were 25,000 people in Cozumel, guys. Now we have 180,000 people, and it is the same treatment plant that there was here in 1987. So they have not done the conditions according to the growth of the island so that the corals can be able to survive. So that's one of our biggest problems. Corals cannot adapt so much or so fast to the changes that we are imposing on them because of development and because of doing the preparation or not the planning that was what it was supposed to be for the place that we were supposed to be uh, using, like in this case, the island of Cozumel. Let's go to the next one, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, here, as we said, there are animals that they depend of this relationship that it is in the animal. You see this coral in the bottom that it is green, very nice. That coral, it is a coral that the species called Colcophilia natans, but it is the deep water brain coral. We had these ones in Cozumel. In 2018, we had a disease that it killed all the corals of this species in Cozumel. We have not one left. And like this one, there was another one that was called pillar coral that also is gone. And that's a problem. They're not going to come back in our lifetime or in the lifetime of our children or in the lifetime of the children of our children. because they grow 1 centimeter per year. So even if we would find right now one coral that miraculously survived to all this, that coral, by the time that it gets to be the size of the corals that they died in 2018, it will be 2,000 years from now. So that's how grave is the problem. And the thing is this, we have restoration, we're doing restoration, but some corals, you can't do it that much because at the end of the day, you don't have the enough amount of tissue so that you can try to reproduce it. And that's the pain of what it has happened, you know? So basically, as here, as we have said, the zooxanthelas, they are what is so important for them so that they can be able to eat and to digest and to form their skeleton. These animals, what they do is that they digest their food, and whatever is the nutrient is what maintains the animal alive, and the rest is used to build up the skeleton. So imagine 65 million years ago, there was a huge meteorite that fell on the Earth. In that moment, all the corals of the planet died. There was no corals left in the planet. They were species, primitive species of 70 million years ago, but they were already, so they are polyps, they are animals that they had been here. So they disappeared for a period of time that it was 20 million years for the corals to come back and evolutionize to the corals that we have now in the present. And in 40 million years ago, under my feet, a little polyp like the one that you see on the left grew on top of a rock. And from there, 40 million years later, you had an island that it is Cozumel. All the island is made of coral. It's amazing, guys. And we don't treat it right because that island, for it to come back and to do all this evolutionary effort that was done during this time, we are destroying it in decades, not even in thousands of years, no, in decades, because it's not the same Cozumel that I saw when I put the mask for the first time and I went and I jumped into the water. Let's go ahead. Let's go to the next one, please. Thank you. Okay, here you can see the polyps outside, and that's how they look. You see on the left, and we have there like what? Is that a coral? Well, yes, it is. It is a soft coral, and the polyps, you can see them on the top. Those are the polyps of the soft corals. They are animals that they don't have a skeleton made of calcium carbonate. The skeletons of the corals that they form the island, they are made of the same that our bones are made of. So actually, it is the same substance, resistant, and everything else. These animals, instead of using that, they make a substance that it is called gorgonine. And that's why they are called gorgonians. And we have like about 90 species of them. And although that they look like plants, they are not. They are animals, they are corals, and they also take out their polyps, they capture prey, and they also have zooxanthella, so they have the two systems of feeding. Now, on the right left, you can see, on the right bottom left, I'm sorry, on the right, you can see the polyps of the stony corals. The stony corals are the ones that we grow. We're not growing the soft corals because they don't make an island. They live there, but they don't make a reef structure. The only ones that can do it are the stony corals. So, for example, this coral that we have on the right, you can see the polyps, how they are starting to open. During the day, it looks like a rock with holes, but during the night, it looks all the animals outside of their skeleton, and that's how they start eating. If you do a night dive, you put a light on top of the coral without touching it, and you can see how all the plankton gets on top of these animals, and they take their tentacles and capture the food like if there was no tomorrow, you know? So actually, it helps them when you put the light, but obviously that is not what we are supposed to do anyway. So basically, that's how they eat, and that's why they have to live in places where they cannot be nutrients, where there cannot be any kind of algae growth. So when, for example, we have sewage going into the water or we have more nutrients, then those algae start growing. And the problem is that the algae, they grow 1 centimeter a day, and the coral grows 1 centimeter a year. So we see corals getting covered by algae where they completely destroy the coral and in very short time. So part of the work that we do as volunteers and that we teach the divers to do is to help us to go and clean in the areas where the corals are. And what do we do? We're taking out the algae. See, for example, the picture that it's on the left where you can see the soft coral and you see the bottom and there's not one single algae. Everything is sand, corals, some of the fire corals, and the soft corals, and a diver in the back. And that's it. But the algae, they don't exist because that's the way that the coral reef should be. Once algae start growing is because it is not a healthy environment anymore. Let's go for the next one, please. Okay, here, the reproduction of the corals, and that's one of the things that we also do here in our program. In the month of July, August, and September, the corals, they do what it's called a spawning. What is the spawning? On the right and in the middle, you can see that they are like little balls coming out from the coral. Those are called gametes. Inside of the gametes, you have ovule and sperm. You have to have a coral male and a coral female. So you need two corals. Some of them, they can be hermaphrodite, but not the ones that were growing. So for us to get the gametes, we have to get two corals that they are spawning at the same time and that they are males and females. So basically what we do is that in the middle, you can see that there is a net in the bottom. And with that net, we capture the gametes that we take to the laboratory. And in the laboratory, we fertilize them in situ so that we can be able to see how in 17 hours from those little balls, it's going to be formed a baby coral that starts morula, blastula, grassula, and then after that, they become in what is called a planula. That it is when the baby coral is born, they can swim, they have a tail, and they move and they look for a rock clean. It cannot have algae. So that's another thing. So as when it has a rock where it can be able to attach, they attach, and all the energy of the yolk, it's been gone in that moment. So they don't have how they're gonna get their food because already they spend their energy. So basically, they just wait for the zooxanthella that now they know, hey, look, there's a new colonizer, and then they go in, and in that moment, the coral is independent. So what we do in the laboratory is that we keep them there up until 2 months. During those 2 months, because they don't have the zooxanthella, they cannot eat on their own. So basically, we have to bottle feed them, kind of. We give them something that it is called Reef chili, and they love it. And once they eat that, we wait 2 months, and then we take them outside and we put them on the side of the parents. And from the parents also, so Santel is coming out, and now they are ready to grow. So it helps because in any given time, in a good spawning occasion, you can get 2,000 of those babies that you can grow. And let's say that from those, 50% of them survive. And now you can plant 1,000 corals in just one event. So that's been something that we have been using, and it's good. But then there it comes what we have learned that, for example, on the mainland of Cozumel, on the mainland of Quintana Roo, specifically on the part that it is called Puerto Morelos, there is a reef that it forms part of the marine park that is called Limones. That means lemons in Spanish. But there it is huge amount of Acropora palmata or Eljon coral. That is the one that you have in the middle. Why everybody wants to grow them? Because they are the corals that they grow faster. You can see results faster. But at the end of the day, the reef is not made of one single species. Already in 1979, coincidentally, 5 years after they built Cancun, they built it in 1975. By 1979, there was a disease that nobody knows. We didn't do anything, but it showed up and it killed 98% of all the El Home corals of all the Mesoamerican barrier reef. So they went into an endangered species list. There are corals that they can grow very fast. They can grow even 1 centimeter a month in good conditions. So everybody wants to grow them. But we come back to that. When you go to a reef, you don't find one single species of corals. And it wasn't one of the most important corals of Cozumel. The most important corals of Cozumel are the harder to grow. Like you see on the left side, see that coral? It is called a pillar coral or Dendrohira cylindrica. That coral was one of my favorite. See how it looks fuzzy? It's because during the day or during the night, always the polyps were out. We don't have a single coral left of those in Cozumel. We found one right now. Another of the things that Cozumel Coral Reef is doing to try to involve the divers, we are making a campaign where we are making the divers that they are local divers and dive masters, instructors, when they go to the park. Normally, in any given day, there are 227 dive stores on an island that it is 45 miles long and 8 miles wide. I lived in Miami, and in Miami there are 12 dive stores, and there are almost 4 million people. It's amazing. And they have a reef in front. But in Cozumel, it has been an invasion. 227 dive stores. However, how many people they move 227 dive stores? They move 3,000 divers a day. Do you know that 3,000 divers is what it comes in the smallest of the cruise ships? So now, guess what? Because we don't know the importance of the coral, because nobody told us what is a coral and why it was so important to keep them. Then, when the tourist the cruise ship industry came to Cozumel, it didn't matter. They said, "Oh, you're gonna have a lot of income. Instead of being 3,000, you're gonna have 40,000 people a day." And that was the beginning of the end, because that started with the first pier that was in 1994. And because of that pier, I went to study to become a marine biologist because I couldn't believe what we were doing, but we were doing it anyway. When I came back in 2012, they built another pier, one side of that one. You don't imagine that one. I was already here and I already had cameras. And we went and we filmed and we video and we did everything to see how much destruction they did to build the pier. And they built the pier in between where they built the first pier, and then the second pier, it is in between the first pier and the marine park. Sometimes you come out of paradise and you're almost on top of the ship. It's like, come on, man, common sense. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Right now, we're fighting for the fourth pier that is going to be for 7 ships. That means 14 ships a day. That means 80,000 people a day on an island that is still 45 miles long and is still 8 miles wide, where we only have one treatment plant and where we don't have the construction to avoid the damage that this is going to occasion. But greed is greed, and whatever happens, it doesn't matter. But that's another story. Right now, we are still fighting to try to make that people can understand the importance of this, because we are running out of time. We are running out of time. Right now in Cozumel, in the whole island, from this coral that you see on the left, we found through this program that we're doing, we told them, find 8 corals, the corals that we're looking for. And one guy found on the ship, the only ship that is over there for Chancana, on the top of the ship, there is a piece of this coral. But for that piece of coral to be this size, it's going to be 1,000 years from now. And that's the only coral of that species that we have in Cozumel. Amazing, no? So anyway, let's go to the next one, please.
Dr. Mendez, just as a reminder, we have about 15 minutes before we need to start wrapping up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go a little bit faster with a. Okay. So corals, we know how they are formed. They are made of calcium carbonate. They take a long time to grow. What you are seeing here are part of the corals that we have been planting. So basically, we're trying to see in the bottom of the left how everything in the bottom is covered with algae. That's when you know that a reef is not healthy because that is not supposed to be there. That should be other corals or other organisms. And what we do is that we put the corals, and the coral that you see in the middle, that is called lettuce leaf coral, they are surviving to these conditions. But then we have to go and we have to clean with brushes around to take out the algae. And the next day is going to be the same way. And the next day, the same way. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, well, obviously we know this. It is just that coral reefs. What it is the reason why they have so many animals that they live there? Because they make a three-dimensionality where other animals can protect themselves. With no reef, you have no place where these animals can protect. One fourth of all the fish that they live in the planet, they live where the coral reefs are. So that's one thing that we need to know because right now, from the reefs that we had to the reefs that we have, it is very small the amount, and the fishing industry and everything else is gonna be affected. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, yeah, here also they are basically talking about what it is, the biological cement that they do. See, for example, in this part of the wall, how everything that hold on a second. There is not one single coral in all that wall. All that wall, although like this look beautiful, if you go to the reef and you say, where is the coral? There's not one single living coral here. Everything are sponges and algae. And that's why it's so important that you know how to know what is a coral and what's a sponge and what's an algae. So in that way, when you go to the reef, you know what we're looking at. And then you can tell us, oh, well, I saw how many corals in a dive, and you will be surprised. You don't see that many. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, yeah, here they are talking about the competition, but one of the biggest problems that we have had, it's on the right side, you see this coral that it looks dead. This is a brain coral, guys. When the disease came in 2018, it came and it devastated the corals. We were going with antibiotics and epoxy and putting this kind of firewall in between the coral that was dead and the coral that was still alive, but they didn't survive. And it was overwhelming. When you go to a place where the reef is about 20 miles long and everything is invaded by the disease, you can just do so much. If you're at 80 feet and you start putting this medication in the coral, it takes you one tank to put the medication in one coral, and you still have 300 more to go. And very short time because the disease killed the corals in a week. In a month, the coral was white. So yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible to see that. Next, please. Now, how did the disease came over here? That's the other interesting question. Here, this picture that you see, that turtle, it is a hawk-billed turtle. The hawk-billed turtles, they live in Cozumel. They are the resident turtles. That's the one that you would find more often. But they don't nest in Cozumel. They nest in the Gulf of Mexico. So they only stay here for a certain time and they love to eat sponges. They are the ones that they control the sponges population. But the other ones, like for example, loggerheads and green turtles, you see them, but you don't see them but from March to October. And this is what you can see at any time of the year. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, we know that, for example, the coastal protection is so important, guys. In Cozumel, there has been Gilbert, it was Wilma, and those are the two Cat 5s. In those two hurricanes, the destruction was impressive. But there was a difference in between the destruction after the Hurricane Gilbert, 1988, and the Hurricane Wilma, 2005. Because in 1988, there was no development in the south in front of the marine park. There was no one single hotel. There was not one single beach club. There was nothing. The coral by 1993 was thriving. And then we realized that the island of Cozumel has gone through hundreds, if not thousands of hurricanes since since the island has been born. And always the coral comes back because we form part of the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef and they bring the larvae that they will start restoring. But the difference was that in 2005, there were already beach clubs, there were already hotels, there were already condominiums, there was already the pier that fell down. And in that moment, the coral never came back because now they put more importance to all what it was to rebuild the beach clubs and everything else, where they don't have a sewage that would take that to the treatment plant. So that's another story, but we don't have time to talk about that. Anyway, let's go to the next one, please. Okay, yeah, tourism. But then again, guys, tourism, there can be two ways of tourism. Uh, in this case, our tourism, for example, it is to teach the people about the coral, the importance, and to make them form part of the restoration effort. The people, when they come and they take the course, they help us in our nurseries, they help us in the areas where we are restoring the corals, and at the end, they plant the coral. And then, in that sense, you give them a sense of ownership of the reef. You tell them now, this is your reef, this is your coral. If somebody breaks the coral, tell them don't break it because you may be breaking my coral. And if we can make that, and every diver that comes to Cozumel would think like that and do that, we can make a better reef done by divers. We can have a better reef done by ourselves. We did the mistakes, yeah, but we can restore them. We can do the difference. And that's where we start, you know, because we cannot go against the wave that it means to make a big reef, a big pier, but we can teach the people how to protect what they have. If they would have known more how to protect it, maybe we wouldn't have piers. Right now, we are fighting like you cannot imagine, just to fight for that little reef where we have our restoration area. And we have gone against David, and we are no, against Goliath, and we're just David. And now these people, they already took down all the jungle in front of the place where they plan to build a pier. But meantime, the same people of Cozumel have said no more piers, and right now is on standby. They had to review all the things, and there is still a possibility that they will build it. So we don't know. But at the end of the day, coral reefs are now more important than having another pier because this is what is being disappearing, not the pier. Piers are everywhere, and now they are making bigger ships, and now they're bringing bigger things. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, let's go to the next one. Fisheries, we don't have them here in Cozumel. One thing that I can tell you about fisheries is this. If fishermen, without the protected areas and without coral reef, they won't have where to go fishing. That's what is going to happen. At the end of the day, even that is going to be affected. We have, I don't remember when was the last time I saw a grouper in Cozumel. And it's a marine park. So, that's the thing that we don't see how different species are not there anymore and that we have to try to bring them back. But the thing is that still we have people that they go and fish inside of the park. There is not enough amount of vigilance. There is not, and people they don't realize that they would make more money by taking the people to see that fish than by taking that fish and putting it in the market. But anyway, that's another part, another story. Let's go to the next one, no, please. Well, yes, in medical advances in corals, we don't know. We have found so different many things, like for example, for cancer and anti-inflammatory agents in both grafting and regeneration and all these kind of things. So the problem is this, guys, we're killing the drugstore, you know. So we don't know how many more medicines we could have been able to find. Right now in Cozumel, we have lost 70 to 80% of the reef. And among them, species that they're not going to come back, not in our lifetime. So, what is going to happen with all the other things that we could have been able to find? We don't know. And the same thing is happening not only in Cozumel, but it's happening everywhere where right now development is being done. Let's go to the next one, please. This is important, guys, because this picture that you see on the left, it is the same picture that is on the right. It is Blanca Reef, and it is at 80 feet. And it was one of my most favorite places. On the left, this picture was taken in 1990, and you can see how everything is covered with corals that they are called fingertip corals. We call them porites. We call them the cockroaches of the sea. And even the cockroaches, this picture taken on the right is from 2025 of the same place. Imagine. Now you ask, how is it possible that there are algae there? Well, if you have all those beach clubs that they built in front of the marine park, then what did you expect it? You know, everyone now there are 52 beach clubs up until 2018. And why are they beach clubs? Because what do you do with the people that they come out of the cruise ships? You have to put them somewhere. So you need more beach clubs. And right now, if they build the other pier, it's gonna go to over 100 beach clubs in front of the marine park. But it's still no treatment plan or any plans to make the sewage go into the treatment plant that we have. Next one, please. Okay, yeah, well, the coral stressors, we know what they are, and unfortunately, guys, that disease of 2018 was devastating, and it also has to do with human interference. Why? Okay, well, the currents in the northern hemisphere, they go clockwise. They go from Cozumel to Miami. Okay, the disease, it was found in Miami in 2014. It was reported and they were doing studies of it, but they didn't know if it was a virus or if it was a bacteria. In 2018, it goes to Cozumel. Now, the question is, how did it got here? Did it got here because it went around the world and it went to the Arctic and then to Europe and then to the equator and then went back into the current and went to Cozumel? No. What's the easiest way to bring water from Miami to Cozumel? What do the ships use in their boats? They use ballast. They use water to control the weight. So what they do is that they take out the water in Miami and they dump it in Cozumel. It's amazing, guys. But I'll tell you one thing. I lived in Cozumel for 40 years, and I also live in Florida because that's where I went to school. But the thing is that in Florida, I saw beaches where there were signs that they say Portuguese man of war, be careful. But in Cozumel, in 40 years, I have never seen a Portuguese man of war. 3 months ago, in front of the beach club, there was a live Portuguese man of war just swimming there. And the question is, how did it got here? Did he swim against the current? Did he came from the North Atlantic or how? And then you know the ballasts. And then that's how the disease got to Cozumel. And in 8 months, it killed 50% of all the most important corals of Cozumel. 8 months. And there was nothing we could do. Nothing. We just saw it pass. Up until now, they don't even know yet what it is, the disease. They don't know if it is a bacterial or if it is a virus. And we have treated symptomatologically, but at the end of the day, there is not very much advances because there are not many studies in the diseases of corals. Anyway, let's go to the next one, please. So this is that famous disease. Now, you see, for example, in 1 week, how it went from being like it is on the left side, that half of the body is alive, or well, one third, to this, that in 1 week, there is only a little patch left. By the time that you take care of them, there's nothing to do. Few survived, very few survived. So, and it's still here? Yes, unfortunately. 1 week ago, we saw one coral die from the same disease. So it's very resilient and it has been affecting the corals right now. And the problem is this, that because of the same water conditions that we have, see the pictures on the right and in the left, don't see the coral, see the bottom, and everything is covered with algae. Those are the bad algae. Those are the algae that we have to take out. Those algae are not supposed to be there, but because of all the same conditions of the water are there. Let's go to the next one, please. Okay, yeah, here is the same, but here, one thing interesting before, I'm gonna pass them faster, but here, for example, see that one, the coral in the bottom? That one is a shallow water brain coral. And you can see how in the middle it died from the disease. And you can see what we did. What we do is that we put like a kind of a firewall. We put the epoxy that we use to attach the corals, and we make this line. And under the epoxy, we put an antibiotic. We have been using a broad spectrum antibiotic where we put it there, and then that is supposed to act like a firewall where you stop the disease from spreading. But not all the corals survive, not even with that. And again, it's treated just not, it hasn't been done even a study with an antibiogram where we can see if really the amoxicillin is the best is the best antibiotic that we should use. We don't even know if it is a bacteria. Let's go to the next one, please. The bleaching is another problem that we had. It started in 2023. It was devastating in Florida. It killed a lot of the elkhorn coral, the elkhorn coral. Here in Cozumel, oh, this picture that you see on the right, that's what caused the death of all those fingertip corals that they were on top of the reef because of the same bleaching. The corals didn't survive. The corals in the bottom, although that they look dead because they're white, if you would see them a little bit more in detail, you can see the polyps coming out and trying to eat because they're still alive. The only thing is that they are like ghosts. The color is given by the algae. Once the algae is not in their body, then they have to be animals all day long, and there's not enough amount of food for them to survive. So yeah, and we didn't have in 40 years that I've been in Cozumel, I have never seen a bleaching event. And now the question is, are they getting worse? Because 23 we had one, 24 we had another one. Let's go to the next one, please, because we have to do something. We cannot just let the things happen, you know? And I cannot go and protect all the reefs. This is some of our things that we're doing. As here, we're teaching people. We have people that they're coming from different schools. They're coming from England. They're coming from Germany. They're coming from France. They're coming from United States. And then all these people, they already have certain knowledge. So if they want to, they can do here studies where they stay with us for about 3 months. And then we are working in different projects. The project that we have on the left side is that we are maintaining these corals, the brain corals, so that we can check the spawning when it's time for them to release their gametes. On the right side, you can see that there are these structures. Those structures, we are recently trying them on. This is one of our new things. We started like about about 5 months ago. And these structures, they are made on 3D and they are made with coralline, that it is a very important algae of the reef because that's what it is where the coral likes to grow. And with sargassum. All that sargassum now is being processed and we're using it to make these new structures. The new plan that we have to prepare if they're gonna build that pier or not. We're still in limbo. We don't even know where we're going. But we have to keep focus. And what we're doing is that, okay, if they build the pier, then we have to move. Where are we gonna move? So from where we are right now, we're gonna go to the north towards the Hotel Villa Blanca. And all that area that it is between the naval base and Villa Blanca is an area that is not gonna be affected by the construction of the pier. So we're gonna move the nurseries there and we're gonna put all these structures there. So in that way, we can make another reef that is gonna be the last bastion left of reef outside of the marine park in Cozumel. But we're working on it and the students, they have been helping us a lot. So that's been great. Let's go to the next one, please.
And Dr. Mendez, as you get into this.
I'm done. Okay.
As you get into this, could you mention how everybody might be able to help you?
Well, yeah, just to finish, this is the platforms that we started with. On the left side is the platform in 2017. On the right side is the same platform in 2025. So that's what we do, and we don't do it ourselves. The same divers help us and they learn, and then from there they can help us. They become a part of the project instead of just being not part of it, Well, thank you for your attention, guys. Sorry that I extra limited, but sometimes we talk a lot.
We appreciate your information, Dr. Mendez. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Part two, okay?
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendez, for taking time out of your evening to talk with us and educate us. And hopefully some people in our group will come to Cozumel and take your class and start helping build the nursery.
Sure, you're more than welcome to. So anytime we're here and we're gonna be in the south or we're gonna be in the north, but we're gonna be there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's do the raffle and we will be done. Very good. We'll start with the one with the most tickets. That will be the Dolphins, White Dolphins. Let's get, what are we gonna throw?
938.
938. Yes. Okay, the next one will be for the garden gnomes. With Adrian to draw one.